Welcome back, everybody, to His Heartbeat. Great to have you. We have a new topic today by Elaine Lankford. She's going to talk to us about how to get started and move into entrepreneurial work, some coaching opportunities, things like that, and her own story, how all that came about. And we were connecting because she's also training women in Africa, a place of my heart that we do a lot through Crown of Beauty in Uganda. So that's awesome. Welcome, Elaine.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, it's great to see you and meet you. And I know you also have a story kind of leading up to that, right? Because you were a nurse and then
Correct.
now you're not a nurse. So tell us how that came about.
Absolutely. So I did have a long-standing nursing career. I did oncology nursing first, and then I was in pain management. And throughout my career, I had always uh, worked up my way on the leadership ladder. And so toward the latter part of my career, around 2008, I had become a nurse practitioner, was out in practice in pain management. And so it was just living the life, right? And I was someone who was born and raised in church and just felt like I was living my calling at that point because I did feel in my younger years that God had called me into nursing, felt that strongly, and had built my whole trajectory toward that. And so in 2008, though, pain management had become very political again in our country after coming into a recognition that all people deserve to have their pain treated. We kind of swung back around, unfortunately, because of circumstances in the country and the environment. And so when 2008 hit, here in Virginia, we'd had some bad actors at play. And so there were just some politics that were at play. And unfortunately, the practice I was in was targeted and closed down. And in the
Wow.
midst of that, they had come to investigate the physician that I was working for. And because I wouldn't flip on him, because there wasn't anything to flip on, there was actually an investigation opened up against me.
Oh, wow.
And so I had to go through a very hairy political assassination, if you will, of my career because there were just, questions abound in that arena. And unfortunately, even though we tried to do everything right, and I can honestly say that I did an ethical job at my practice, it was what it was. And so here I am in the battle of fighting for my career, fighting for my reputation, which would take several months and several $1,000s. My father passes away and he was kind of the glue to our family. And then several months after that, my husband at 47 was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
Mhm.
And so I go through this whole year of just things falling into ashes and not understanding what's going on. And as a person of faith, I came to a crossroads and had to decide whether I was going to lean into my faith or run away. And I decided to lean in and I
Praise
decided
God.
to figure out. Yeah, I decided to figure out if, this God is who he says he is and he can do what he says he can do. And as I traveled down that road, basically I had to start rebuilding a career and had to really fight for some sense of purpose because nursing had been my whole world.
Mm.
And long story short, through that, it was about a 5-year period that I went through just this trial and testing and just this darkness that a lot of people with various situations in their life go through. I had started writing down all these things that God was downloading to my soul, whether it was a whisper of something he was saying to me or a scripture he gave me for that day. And I toward the end of that, I really felt like he wanted me to put it in a book, which I ended up doing, and I ended up self-publishing a book that was all about my God story at that point of coming out of that situation and what I'd learned. And that was my step into entrepreneurship. So once you have a book, you got to learn to market the book and talk about the book and sell the book. And so
Yeah.
that was my launch into entrepreneurship.
And what was the name of the book?
So a book's called Love Echoed Back. I cried out and he answered.
Okay.
Yeah,
And so where did you go from there? Because you didn't continue an authorship career. So now what?
absolutely. So when that first all happened, I had been very active in the church that I was in. My husband and I had been there for several years, and I'd led lots of small groups or Bible studies, whatever way you say that in your environment. And my husband played in the band, and I'd started going on mission trips. So we knew a lot of people in the church. And I really thought as that kind of progressed that, maybe God's teeing me up to be the next Beth Moore. Maybe that's what's happening. I'm not sure, but I'm in for it if that's where we're going. But what I really found out is on one of the mission trips that I took to Nicaragua was that he had a little bit different of a plan. And so as I'm in Nicaragua and I went down there for several years, but within those first few years, I was sitting out on a porch one morning, drinking coffee with this obnoxious rooster going off in the background. And I just heard God say, I need you to go home and raise up my daughters. And I really didn't know what that meant at first. Like I told people I was not the popular kid in high school. I didn't go to college, so I wasn't part of a sorority. Like I had a very small ring of friends. And for the most part, girls were mean. And I really didn't know what I was supposed to be doing with them. So when I got home though, the church I was at had grown from like 400 to 1,000 and we'd
Wow.
built a new building and I was able to look out one Sunday morning. I just looked at all these women in the congregation that I knew had been in relationship with them, maybe had been their small group leader or just their friend. And I knew their stories and I couldn't understand why they were coming in, checking a box and going home and not using that in a positive way. And so it just dawned on me that what he was trying to get to me was to be a catalyst, to push women forward, to get them out
Mhm.
of their seat, to get them moving in a direction where they could use all of their talents and skills and maybe their past hurts and help someone else out. And so that's kind of how it started. And so not too long after that, I learned about coaching and I was like, I'm in for that. I feel like I've been doing that like on the side, right? Not realizing what I'm doing. And so got into that, got my own coach, nice gentleman here in the area, Christian fella, and went down and got the John Maxwell certification because who doesn't love John and his whole concept of leadership and faith. And so just started working in that direction. And I thought at first I would be like, really ministering to women in the church and helping them grow up as leaders in the church. And that quickly shifted. God clearly made it um, a point to me that I was going to be working outside of the walls of the church. And part of that is because he gave me a concept for a conference, which I call the She Steps Forward Conference. And in that conference, it started off inspirational, motivational. How can we get you to lean into dreaming with God? How can we get you to understand mentoring and coaching and what it can do for you? He just did something really magical within my heart. And he just really let me see women in a different light and their struggles and their needs to to help them get up out of that seat and to step forward. And then God being the funny God that he is, in that very first conference, never expecting even someone from out of state to show up, he actually brought a young lady from Kenya, a lady who was Nigerian born but had lived in Kenya for about 10 years, co-pastoring with her husband. And she had caught our conference advertisement, which believe me, I had no big budget and no huge website back then. I don't even know how we laugh about it. We know it was a God connection because I'm not sure how she found me. But we had called that conference She Steps Forward into Destiny. And destiny, as you probably know, is a huge word in Africa. They name their kids after what they think their destiny will be. Teresa came over and stayed and went to conference and stayed a few more days afterwards, and we got to really know each other. And she asked me would I come to Nairobi because she knew this is what women there needed to hear. And so I was like, wow, I don't know, God. I didn't have Africa on my list to do this year, but if you make that happen, um, and so always being missional, I grew up with a great pastor who gave me a great missional heart when I was a kid, and having served in Nicaragua, I thought I'm up for this adventure. And we got on WhatsApp and Zoom. We planned it out for a year and had a few people in my church super curious how all of a sudden I was going to Africa that wanted to go with me. And we landed in Nairobi, Kenya in February of 2020, right before the whole world shut down. And Teresa, being pre-COVID and being well networked, had raised up a small group of volunteer women. And we had our first conference there, and 60 women from 5 different African countries showed up. And I just knew that
Wow,
God was up to something.
that's really cool. So, what is your like? What are you trying to teach people to move forward? These steps.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I really work with Christian women who are in that 0 to 3 year range of getting into entrepreneurship, whether it's business or parachurch ministry or nonprofit work. And they really, they don't come out of corporate. They're really our ground level ladies in the community who just know that God has called them into this. And so they don't have the business acumen behind them yet. They don't have the business skill or mindset, never been taught that. They're probably first generation entrepreneurs, and they're really struggling in confidence of whether really am I called into this? Really, can I get this set up? Can I make a profit from it? How is this all going to work? And so, what God had given me back when I started She Steps Forward was Luke 145, which is Elizabeth speaking over the Mary, the mother of Jesus, which says, "And blessed is she who believed there would be a fulfillment of what was spoken to her from the Lord." And we really had me study down that story. And so part of the story between Elizabeth and Mary that we don't often meditate on is because we get so excited over the Christmas part of it, right? This angel comes and tells this young girl she's going to have the Messiah and she's not even married yet. And we get all excited about that. It's this really intimate relationship between these two ladies because in that process of the angel telling Mary that she's going to have the Messiah, he says, and your cousin Elizabeth is now 6 months along.
Mhm.
And Mary was older and she'd been barren for many years and she shouldn't have been having a baby. And so we're like,
Elizabeth, you said it wrong,
Elizabeth,
but yeah,
I'm sorry,
okay,
Elizabeth, excuse me.
yeah,
And, we're like, where is this coming from?
uh-huh.
And so as we work through this story, we see that Mary jumps up and she leaves. And there's such a impression upon her to get up and go and find Elizabeth. And I find that so fascinating that in her state, in
Mm,
this probably state of shock, that she's jumping up and she's going to see where Elizabeth is. And what we don't understand in our culture is how far that walk was. She's up in Galilee and Elizabeth is down in the Judea area, and it's like a 70-mile walk. Like, that's some intense want to know right there when you walk 70 miles to get to somebody else, right? And long story short, she gets down there and she walks in the house, and the spirit falls on Elizabeth. And this is when Elizabeth speaks Luke 145 over her. But at the very end of that story, that very small scripture piece at the end, it says, and she stayed with her 3 months.
mm,
And I don't think we ever sit long enough with that. Like, what happened in those 3 months? What was said between these two women? How was Elizabeth the helper that Mary needed to go back and do the thing that was so hard? And I really feel like it's a great relationship for women to look at, women empowering women. How can we push each other forward? And so the whole concept behind She Steps Forward is that we are a bunch of Elizabeths looking for Marys to help them birth their destinies. And so that is the level of woman that we're kind of looking for. And we really want to help them walk out this God sized dream that He's given them.
mm. That's awesome. So are you also helping really practical steps like how to get started? And I know as I started a nonprofit, oh boy, it's a lot to know. There are a lot of legal things you have to know. You help in that?
Absolutely. So we have a piece where we can help them with just the basics, and that can be anywhere from are you structuring an LLC? Are you structuring a nonprofit? What does that
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm,
How do you get your name? How do you trademark it? Opening up that business bank account, all those little things that might need to happen. But then we also really take it a step further because it's about confidence, strategy, and sustainability. Obviously, the confidence, we need to get past the mindset that we can do these things, that if we're gifted spiritually, We have the right skill sets that God set us up for that we can move forward. And part of that is really, again, going back to what individually we've all been created to do, and helping women see where their unique gifting and calling is in, and not trying to cookie cutter it and force them into, you know, what is it, a square peg in a round hole kind of concept. And then we get into strategy, and that really comes down to what are your short term and your long term goals, and how can we build a roadmap that makes sense for your life in the area of life that you're in right now, so that you can accomplish small short goals that will give you the momentum to continue down the road, so that when all of it's said and done, you have now created this business, ministry, or nonprofit that can sustain itself. And then for me, the sustainability, as you know, probably working in another country especially, is so important, because we all know by statistics that 50% of businesses and nonprofits will fail within the first 5 years. And we really want to close the gap on that statistic. And we want to do it for the Christian woman, just because we know the Christian woman, not that we're better than, we just have a unique heart, and we usually position ourselves in a way to give back to community. And so we just find that when that woman accomplishes her goal, somehow that's going to feed back and benefit her community. So we say we can change her world today, she'll change her community tomorrow.
Yeah, that's great. So, can you share some of the, well, there's pitfalls once you get into it, but some of the things that hinder people from jumping into, or even your own story, like it takes a lot of courage to do that. So, where did you
Yeah.
begin, and what did you feel, if I can say, the enemy, so to speak, trying to speak against that or prevent that?
Absolutely. So I do think we as women have to really understand our leadership capabilities and our roles. And we as women across the board have sometimes been pushed down by society and by the church and what it is that we can lead or do. And so we have to get past that piece. And for me, as a person of faith, like, I'm going to follow what God says. And if God says I can do it, then I'm going to push off into that direction, knowing that He's going to complete that work in me. And so the first thing is just to kind of get over that hump of that we really can't lean into what everybody says, right? We have to lean into what the Lord says and what He's given us to do. And we have to take that step of faith with Him, knowing that some people will be there to help us. They will become our destiny helpers, if you will, if we will take that chance. The other thing I really think is just getting the skills that you need and leaning into mentoring coaching. I think we as a whole, as women, have probably not leaned into that the way that we could have. And so I think we've allowed ourselves to believe that it's not for us when it is also for us. I hope one of the gaps that she steps forward is closing is that we will create more female mentors and coaches out there to choose from, so that we have someone on our side that can, as you say, the enemy comes in and whispers the doubt and the fear, that we can be the cheerleaders to each
Yeah.
other and hold each other up. And so for me, it was a matter of just one, kind of recollecting myself, because what I found is a lot of these women are coming out of something. Again, they're turning their pain into purpose. And so getting past whatever doubt, shame, fear, whatever that emotion is that they've tagged to that. Once they're out on the other side of that, it's just learning the skill set that you need, but also understanding it's not all built in a day. And it does take time and strategy to do these things. And one of the things I love about John Maxwell's work, and being in that whole leadership sphere, kind of teaches you is that failure is actually a step forward. And when we get past the fear of failure, we'll take more steps, knowing that that failure is just a stepping stone to where we're going. It's going to help us pivot. It's going to help us learn better. It's going to help us find a different solution to the obstacle we're facing. And so, all of these things for us, if we look at them in the wrong way, if we take them negatively, it makes us hold back. It makes us want to quit. It makes us give up. And yet, really, all of these things are building you into something stronger. something that can really contain what it is that you've been uh, purposed to do. And so nobody gets to success without going through these roads. And so once we can learn that and take a hold of that, that's when we'll be successful. And that's what we're trying to get to people.
Yeah, it seems that having a mentor or a friend or somebody who's done it, uh, be there with you for you as you walk through those steps is really helpful.
Super helpful. And like, I started off with my first coach in the very beginning back in 2016. It's been several years now. I've had multiple coaches since then. There's so many things to learn and so many people who can come along and give you that next piece. And so I think that's the other part of it is that investment in ourselves should be done over a course of time. And we have to learn that there are going to be different people that come along in our journey, different seasons, that we need different people to help us with different parts. And so we should always be looking for that next opportunity to sharpen our skills.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you start out and you need to talk to a lawyer, you need to talk, I mean, there's so many things and people who've been successful, people who haven't, that whole thing. Yeah. So
Yeah.
one of the catches, right, is money,
Mm.
right? To get started, generally you need money. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so when women come to me, like again, I'm targeting a level of woman who's coming out who may not necessarily have like a savings account bankrolled, right? Like she may not have a lot to bootstrap herself with, but um a couple of different ways that we go about that. If it is someone who is working, we say, don't jump out of the boat yet. Let's figure out if even you need to go just part time. Let's figure out a way that you can continue to have an income to keep the pressure off of financial burdens that may arise if you just quit. Or if you've gone ahead and you've kind of made that step out, like how can we make you money faster? Like, what's the first thing we can do to actually make you profitable? And not in a trickster kind of way, but like, what is it that's within you that we actually can monetize? And a lot of people have so much knowledge and skills that they've never thought about turning around and monetizing, that it really just takes someone sitting with you and looking at all of that with you to say, hey, if you use this piece, someone might actually pay you for that. Let's put that out there and see if we can make that happen. And then as soon as we can start getting some profit to come in, kind of looking at how we can put some of that away, of course, so that we can build it, invest it back into the business. Ladies, don't go out and just get your hair done in a new outfit and a new car and all up in once. We got to put some money away to reinvest back into the business once you start to become profitable. But it's also one of the key pieces I teach women in this area of finance that I was not good at first because we all come into this stumbling. And ladies, if you want to know the financial mistakes, I can tell you that I've done them all. But one of the things that I did learn in the beginning very quickly because I had to is to go and establish yourself with your business banker. And again, it's an area that women shy away from banking and financing and things like that. It's not an area we're super comfortable with. But as a small business owner, the first thing I gravitated to, and I credit the small business banker I had at the time, who was also female, just happened to be female, was that we established a relationship. And you need that relationship. They need to know who you are. Don't just go through the drive through and drop off your checks. Go in the bank and find out who's in the bank that is supposed to be helping you with your small business and what resources that bank has, and have conversation and go back every 6 months to a year and reevaluate where your accounts are. That person is supposed to be there to help you establish credit, help you find the best interest rates, get you set up so at some point if you need a loan that you're in position to do that. I think that's one of the key pieces that I've learned to teach women is you need a really good banking business relationship, and there should be someone in your local bank that's there to help you with that. Find out who that person is and make yourself known.
Yeah, that's good. I know I went online and we were looking at what banks are best for helping nonprofits, and then we just chose one based on that, and it's been terrible, honestly. And I was like, oh, should have just gone with my own bank because I know them and they're so kind all the time and very attentive. So, yeah, just like I like what you said, get to know the people
And be
and
ready to pivot. Like that's one of the lessons I just learned this past year, right? I'm in a higher level of business than I was back then. And the bank that I was in, the business manager changed out, a new person came in, not as good as my prior person. The bank, because it was bought out, became more corporate. And so not the same advantages were there. And I went bank shopping. I went bank shopping and I found a bank that was perfect for me, that had my, ethics and morals, that was willing to look at it as an opportunity. And I changed banks this year. And it was the best move ever, was to go bank shopping and find a new relationship, right? And now I have a real, again, working that new relationship with that new small business bank person is what I'm redeveloping in this new bank. And it's been really great. So we just have to kind of have the confidence to take charge in the financial realm and to shop around. And if we're not getting what we need, to pivot.
yeah, for all the nonprofits, you're needing to find donors and fundraising. That's a challenge. Do you have thoughts on that or resources or anything like that?
Yeah, nonprofit work is difficult. We want to be honest with that. Like it is a sacrifice. And for most nonprofits, they're going to be small nonprofits. Like we're not all going to be the million to double digit nonprofits that are out there. And so the ones who struggle the most are the smaller nonprofits, the ones that may stay as 50,000 or below in a year. Some may trend up into the triple digits. And so fundraising is about relationship and knowing your one clientele, but then also knowing your audience that you're going to pitch to. And it's a double-edged sword in nonprofit. So in regular business, as you know, we're only focused on one person, right? The client, the client, the client. Who am I going to sell my products to? But in the nonprofit world, you're focusing on two people, the people you're going to serve, and then you're focusing on the people who may potentially donate with you. And you have to have relationship. And so one, fundraising is never a single person's job within a nonprofit. You need to surround yourself with people who are willing to go out and be brand ambassadors for your nonprofit. They're going to speak about it. They're going to raise funds for it. Your board should be incredibly active and involved in part of that process. You need to determine where your sphere is and how you might fit into the grant world, which is just a whole hairy mess all within itself. And so you have to find the right grant writer, the one who understands and gets your nonprofit if you choose to use that route and knows how to write grants for you. But the other thing for the small nonprofits, and I'll say that because that's the world I willed in, is a lot of us start off bootstrapping our own nonprofits. And it's a labor of love in the beginning, but at some point you got to be sustainable. And so if you either have to start in your community and just really gather a sustainable network of donors, and or choose to set your nonprofit up so that it is product based and can bring some income in. Like a lot of people think about nonprofits, and you correct me if I'm wrong, or from your experience please add too, that nonprofits always get money and then give out money. But there's two aspects to income in nonprofit. It's getting donor money in, but you can also have product lines where people pay into. So for instance, in my nonprofit, we're a product, what I would call a product line nonprofit. Yes, we are going to try to get money in to subsidize our programs from donors, but all of our programs come at a small cost. Now, part of the reason my programs come at a small cost through our nonprofit is because we're mentoring and coaching. And we know that when women invest, they take that information to heart and take it seriously and act upon it because they've made an investment into it. So that's a whole mindset that we're crossing over and building as we work with our clients. But it also gives us a little bit of income to work from as well. So they're partnering with us to have the programs as well as donors partnering with us to have the programs. And so you have two income streams coming in, and that will make you a more viable nonprofit down the road. And hopefully, if you can pull your programs off, which is very important in the nonprofit world, you have to have programs that show outcomes, positive outcomes. And once you can get into that level, then you can really go after grants and higher level donations because people want to know when they give their money, it's going to be effective. So at
Yeah.
least start with some small programs that you can show some good outcomes. That's going to lead you into higher sources of income. But in the beginning, it's really about establishing the relationship, knowing your client, knowing how to market your programs, and then getting to the right people who have a heart for what you're doing.
Yeah, that's great. I fully concur with the build relationship. I think initially, um, I don't know that we stress that enough. And so it's more like, oh, just get out there and tell everybody, can you give to this? And you can get small donations that way, but you can't get large donations. So as we've spent more energy just thanking people, getting to know people, eating with them, hanging with them, learning about their life and praying for them, um, it, it it really makes a difference. Then they're becoming a partner with you,
Mhm.
not just a person randomly in a way from a mailing giving money. So
I
yeah,
think that
that's really cool.
once we can kind of get our messaging for our nonprofit, for nonprofit specifically, down to a point where it becomes just conversational
Mm,
and your nonprofit can start coming up in conversations. They're not forced, but some people
yeah.
say, "Well, what do you do?" And you'll be able to say, "Well, hey, I go over to in the States and in Africa, I'm helping these women get into entrepreneurship." And that brings a curiosity on when you can bring your messaging into a conversation, just have a conversation about it. A lot of people ask you more and more questions about it and then get more and more intrigued. And then the other part of that is, how can you invite the community into what you're doing? Like sometimes you might want to just ask for volunteers, and volunteers will maybe later become donors because now they've seen the inside
Yeah.
workings of your nonprofit. And then sometimes it's about helping the public be a part of your program. So for us, as I said, we go over to Africa every May. Well, we've made that an open missions trip. And what that means is we invite people from the public to travel with us. And so they want to go see another country and they want to go see, a lot of them do have a heart to go see Africa, fortunately for us. And so when they go with us, now they're actually on the ground seeing the people that we see. And
Hmm.
we've gotten some of our largest donations
Hmm.
post
Yeah,
trip. And
I
so you
agree.
really have to tell the stories, bring it into conversations, make it feel relational, and then maybe give the public an opportunity to be a part of what you're doing.
Do you find that to get beyond that 50,000 mark, that marketing is so important? And if so, what kind of marketing?
So I think marketing for any level of any nonprofit level is just super important. And so a lot of us are going to start off with social media marketing or word of mouth marketing. Building a newsletter list is still probably the best way to continue to reach people on a consistent basis so they continue
Mhm.
to give reoccurring donations, which is something we get excited about that first donation from that person, but we don't think about, oh, they might give us money again. And it's not that we're playing with them, but they really want to follow the story. And if you can continue to follow and continue to tell them the story, you might actually get another donation from them. And so I think building a masterful email list is a big part of it. But then you really, again, it goes back to relations. Like, are you expanding your networking? Are you finding those higher level relationships that you need to have? So in our nonprofit, one of the things that we'll be doing more and more of in the years to come is building corporate and business sponsorship relationships. So
Mm.
for our conference, we do sell tickets to our conference, but that may not cover all of the conference costs, or that might be something really special we want to do within our conference that we need a little extra money for. And so for us in entrepreneurship, it's going out to larger businesses and saying, hey, are you a successful female entrepreneur? Do you remember what it was like to get started? And would you like to help to change the lives of someone who's just getting into it? We have this great conference platform. It's teaching them all these things that they need. We could use your support. Would you like to sponsor our breakfast, lunch, or dinner? Would you like to be our main sponsor? Would you like to get in front of our people and advertise? And so, are you a copywriter? Are you a web designer? Are you someone where an entrepreneur would use you? And could you support our conference? Because then you're going to get to interact with our clients who may actually need your services. But it's building it in a way, those kind of relationships is building it in a way that you start creating an ecosystem, if you will, for whatever it is that you're doing. And that's the way I look at it. I look at it as an ecosystem that I need to build around my nonprofit so that everybody wins. It's a win-win scenario. It's a win for our clients. It's a win for our sponsors and donors. And it's a win for the community, which is ultimately what nonprofit work is about. And so build it as an ecosystem, and who needs to be in your ecosystem to make it all work.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess kind of the last topic because we're running out of time, but is when a lot of people have this great idea to become an entrepreneur, to become or start a nonprofit, and they just envision doing the ministry if we're talking about a Christian context. I know for me that was definitely true. And then you get into it if you're the executive director, CEO, or whatever title you want to take, and you find there's a lot of administration involved. There's a lot on your computer. There's a lot of phone calling and emailing and letters and fundraising. And I don't know if that, like you said, 50% fail in the first 5 years. If that's part of it, is that the person who even founded it isn't getting to do what they really had a passion to do. It's kind of very administrative.
Yeah, it is, but I think it really goes back in my world conception of the people I've come across trying to start nonprofits. There's a couple of different things. One, people really don't understand the investment to start a nonprofit. Women will come to me and they'll go, "Oh, I really want to start this nonprofit." And I'll go, "Do you have, 3 to 5 thousand to start off with to invest?" And they go, "What? What? People aren't going to just give me money first? No, 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 no. There's a whole process. There's paperwork. There's a lawyer that's probably going to have to be involved. There's things that about 3 to 5K you can probably get set up to get started to start collecting money, right? So people don't really have a good understanding of the financial given to start a nonprofit. It really has to be sacrificial on your part. It really has to be something you really, really want to do, and you're willing to make that investment to make it all go. Now, there are some people, and look, if you're one of those people that can do it and you can get the money raised before you start the process, that's absolutely. I kind of wish I'd have thought about that in the beginning, but I was just so passionate about what God had given me to do that I just jumped in and bootstrapped a lot of it. Some people are really clever to raise that money, and
Mhm.
probably smart in raising that money to do it. But if you can't, you have to be willing to make the investment. And then two, I think that nonprofit, for better for worse, is still a mysterious process for a lot of people. There are still a lot of regulation and rules that are not outwardly taught. And once you get into it and you start stumbling around and you figure out how much you do have to do administratively, people get surprised, right?
Mhm.
And then it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I can do all of this. And so I really think there needs to be, and I may be wrong, and if you know of a resource, please interject. But I think there needs to be a better educational platform, especially in our country, on how to get smaller nonprofits done, because they are a majority of our nonprofits, and how to help them become sustainable because they understand the commitment up front and what those first 3 years are going to really look like. in order to be successful, because once you get in it and you get behind and then you can't find the people to be on your board, or the people on your board leave, or you can't find enough donors, or you start getting into all the weeds of it, no wonder that we sometimes pull out and we quit. But then the other part of that is just helping people along. I wish there was just more mentorship in that world, to help raise up these younger lower level nonprofits, for those that are able to make that six figure and beyond level. We need you, thank God for you. um, but don't forget, I would say, don't forget the little part. Some of these young and small nonprofits are really hitting some gaps in the community, and we need better, healthier communities. And so I hope that we will help them, as they get into it. But yeah, the administration can get very, sorry, I'll say this and I'll hush. The leadership ability to run a nonprofit is the other piece I was thinking of. Like, you have to learn to delegate, you have to learn to lead, you have to build a team, and some of that skill doesn't come natural. So if that's not natural to you, please learn in coaching in that area and learn how to set yourself up correctly so you don't end up quitting. We need you out there.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, I think you have some great resources. So could you share with us how they can find you?
Absolutely. So I do have my own personal coaching website, which is shestepsforwardcoaching.com. If you're interested in the nonprofit piece, you can go to shestepsforwardinternational.org, and you can get to me on either website. I see all the emails that come through, and we would be happy to assist you on your journey.
And when's the next mission trip if they want to go?
Absolutely. So, by the way, I should mention our next conference here in the States is
Hmm.
March of 2026
Okay.
here in Virginia, which is my home state. And our next missions trip to Nairobi, Kenya is May 2026. And you can get information at shestepsforwardinternational.org on both conference and our missions trip.
Awesome. All right. Well, this is a lot of good information. Really appreciate it, and gives people a lot to think about. And even if you're not thinking of starting a, LLC or a nonprofit, now you understand those who do a little bit and can be praying for them. Maybe think about joining a board or volunteering, and have compassion when you get 10 letters in the same day asking for money.
Right.
Instead of being angry, just have compassion. You could always just pray for each one, that even though you can't give, that the Lord provide. So, all right. Thanks so much, Elaine, for your time.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. And you all have a great week. And yeah, enjoy the season. And we should be into 2026. Oh my goodness. And we're moving into a great new year. We're praying for that anyway. All right. Praise God. All right. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.